Akashi, will you please play the Naukar mantra first?
Yes, we have to.
Santanam Namo Sittanam Namo Ayyanam Namo Vajjanam Namo Tabeta Mangalam.
Hello everyone. We all from Jito and Triple ID wish you a very good afternoon. I am Architect Sumit Kumar, JPF convener and also a Triple ID member from Nasik. We have with us Sri Kantilal Oswalji, who is the chairman of Jito Pune chapter. I request Oswalji to share a few words with us.
थैंक यू सुमित जी. सभी को जय जिनेन्द्र. सबसे पहले मैं हमारे आज के स्पीकर और पद्म भूषण से गौरवान्वित ऐसे श्री हफीज जी कॉन्ट्रैक्टर सर का जीतो पुणे चैप्टर की ओर से एवं सभी जीतो फैमिली की ओर से स्वागत करता हूँ. सर जी आपका स्वागत है. वेलकम सर. इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ इंडियन इंटीरियर डिजाइनर के साथ मिलके जीतो प्रोफेशनल फोरम के माध्यम से हमारे डायरेक्टर इंचार्ज जेपीएफ श्री रवि जी जैन एवं वाइस चेयरमैन जेपीएफ नासिक के श्री अजय जी बोहरा एवं हमारे जीतो पुणे चैप्टर के चीफ सेक्रेटरी श्री अजय जी मेहता ने इस वेबिनार के आयोजन में महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका निभाई है. साथ में सुमित जी और मनीष जी, आप सभी का धन्यवाद, आप सभी का अभिनंदन है सर. इस वेबिनार में कई महानुभाव उपस्थित है. हमारे एपेक्स वाइस प्रेसिडेंट श्री विजय जी भंडारी, आरओएम चेयरमैन राजेश जी सांकला, आप सभी का स्वागत है सर. इसके पहले भी हमने B2B के माध्यम से एक वेबिनार का आयोजन किया था और उसे बहुत बड़ी सफलता मिली थी और आगे भी आपके लिए उपयुक्त प्रोग्रामों का आयोजन जीतो पुणे चैप्टर की ओर से किया जाएगा. दोस्तों, जैसे कि आप सभी जानते हैं कि इस सदी की सबसे बड़ी विपदा में सिर्फ हम ही नहीं, पूरा देश, पूरा विश्व जूझ रहा है और इस आपत्तिक काल में पूरा जैन समाज राष्ट्र सेवा के कार्य में अपना बहुमूल्य योगदान भी दे रहा है. आप सभी को ज्ञात होगा ही कि श्रमण आरोग्यम और जेटीएफ जैसे कई कार्य जीतो के द्वारा हो रहे हैं और जब भी मानव जाति पे कोई संकट आया है तो जीतो हमेशा से सभी के साथ खड़ा रहा है. भारत भर के जैन इंटरनेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन यानी जीतो के सभी चैप्टर इस समय सेवा कार्य में तन मन धन से जुड़े हुए हैं और जीतो पुणे चैप्टर भी मानवता के इस महायज्ञ में आप सभी की सहायता से अपना महत्तम योगदान दे रहा है. सेवा के इस कार्य में हमें सकल जैन संघ के माध्यम से सभी संस्थाओं ने जो साथ दिया है, तो इसके लिए हम इन सभी संस्थाओं का आभार व्यक्त करते हैं. मैं आज कुछ कहना चाहूंगा सर. श्री हफीज जी कॉन्ट्रैक्टर सर, आप श्री जो वास्तुकला में जो आपका योगदान है और उसके लिए आपको पद्म विभूषण सहित 75 से अधिक नेशनल और इंटरनेशनल अंतरराष्ट्रीय पुरस्कार प्राप्त है और आपने सिर्फ इसके लिए ही काम नहीं किया है, लेकिन आपने जो अर्बन जो हम कहते हैं स्लम रिहेबिलिटेशन जो स्कीम है उसकी भी आपने बॉम्बे में शुरुआत की और इन बस्तियों के मुद्दे पे आपने बहुत अच्छा समाधान भी किया है और आपने जो भी प्रभावशाली आपका जो वक्तृत्व है, आपका जो अभ्यास है, वो करीबन 35 सालों से आपका जो अनुभव है वो देश के लिए बहुत बड़ा योगदान रहा है उनके कार्य के लिए. और सर, आपकी सबसे बड़ी जो चीज हमें जो अच्छी लगती है, तो आप आपके सामाजिक दायित्व के बारे में भावुक है और आपका सपना है कि हर एक भारतीय के लिए एक घर प्रदान करना चाहिए, एक घर होना चाहिए. पोस्ट कोविड वर्ल्ड आने वाले समय का परिस्थितियों का आकलन करना हमारे लिए आज सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज है और इस पर आज हम सभी श्री हफीज कॉन्ट्रैक्टर सर का व्यू और उनका मार्गदर्शन पाने के लिए उत्सुक है. फिर से एक बार आप सभी का स्वागत है और थैंक यू सर, आप यहाँ आए इसके लिए बहुत बड़ा आपका आभार है. जय जिनेन्द्र, जय जीतो. थैंक यू मनीष जी, सुमित जी.
थैंक यू ओसवाल जी. नाउ जय गणेश, राजेश साकला जी, Chairman of Rest of Maharashtra, Jito, can you say a few words, please?
Yes. जय गणेश, जय पद्म भूषण हफीज जी कॉन्ट्रैक्टर, आपका हार्दिक स्वागत है. आपको लोग कहते द मैन हु ड्रॉज इंडिया, लेकिन मैं पुराना हूँ इस लाइन में. मैं आपका नाम सुन रहा हूँ 1986-87 से, जब आप कारिया बिल्डर्स में पुणे में काम चालू किया था. सिर्फ आपका नाम लगने
I think we lost his audio.
और हेलो, 300 रुपए से उसके रेट उस वक्त ज्यादा मिलते थे. और वही करोड़ों रुपए के फ्लैट बनाने वाले, जब आपका मैंने डिजाइन देखा, इसका एक्जरबिया के लिए आपने बनाया 7,77,000 रुपए का फ्लैट भी आप बनाए हैं, तो आपका विजनरी और आप क्या हो ये पूरी दुनिया को मालूम पड़ा। हाफिज कॉन्ट्रैक्टर जी, मैं रेस्ट ऑफ महाराष्ट्र का चेयरमैन आपका स्वागत करता हूं, और मैं आप सबका आभारी हूँ जिन्होंने जितो प्रोफेशनल फोरम ने, जितो रेस्ट ऑफ महाराष्ट्र, जितो पुणे इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ इंडियन इंटीरियर डिजाइनर्स, जिनकी वजह से आज हमारे पूरे जितो के लोगों को, जितो के नए यूथ को मालूम पड़ेगा हाफिज कॉन्ट्रैक्टर ये चीज क्या है और उन्होंने जिंदगी में अभी तक क्या क्या किया है। आपके क्वेश्चन रखिएगा, हर क्वेश्चन का आंसर मिलेगा। हाफिज कॉन्ट्रैक्टर जी 7 लाख का फ्लैट भी बनाते हैं और 70 करोड़ का फर्नीचर, जैसा रसिकलाल जी धारीवाल का पुणे का ऑफिस बनाया वैसा ऑफिस भी बना सकते हैं। वो ऑल इन वन है और इसीलिए उनको पद्म भूषण दिया गया। हाफिज जी, मैं आपसे एक विनती करूंगा कि हमें अब वक्त आया है कि हमें कॉस्ट कटिंग के सिवा कुछ काम नहीं होगा। हमें कॉस्ट कटिंग कैसी करनी चाहिए ये हमारे बच्चों को मार्गदर्शन कीजिए। हम तो करते थे, हम साइड पे बैठते थे, लेकिन आज ऑफिस से काम होता है। ये आपका गाइडलाइन हमें आगे बहुत खींचेगा। इतना ही मैं कहता हूँ। पुणे के और पुणे में जितो में जो आप 1,000 के आसपास लोग जो कनेक्ट हुए, वो सबका मैं रेस्ट ऑफ महाराष्ट्र की वजह से स्वागत करता हूँ। कोरोना में अभी तक पूरे महाराष्ट्र ने 7 करोड़ रुपए का दान धर्म के लोगों का 7 करोड़ रुपए खर्चा करके लाखों लोगों को खाना खिलाया है। पुणे, चिंचवड, नासिक, पिंपरी, नासिक, जळगाव, जो चैप्टर है, अहमदनगर, हर चैप्टर अपना काम कर रहा है, कोल्हापुर, और यही जीतो की शान है। और जीतो के इस स्टेज के ऊपर आपका हार्दिक हार्दिक स्वागत। जय गणेश, जय गणेश। मेरा सिद्धि विनायक ग्रुप करके कंस्ट्रक्शन कंपनी 1986 से पुणे में चालू है। पुणे PCMC में काम करता हूँ। थैंक यू वेरी मच। वेलकम सर।
Thank you, Rajesh ji. Now, can we have Director in charge JPF, Mr. Ravi Jain, with us?
Yeah, Jai Jinendra. I welcome everyone who are attending this webinar on post-COVID world, paradigm shift in design, architectural approach, and commercial angle. Architecture is a visual art, and architect design for the present with an awareness of the past for a future which is essentially unknown. Today, it's my honor to welcome Padma Bhushan awardee, the man who draws India, Mr. Hafiz Contractor, as the speaker in today's webinar session. I also welcome all the office bearer of Rest of Maharashtra Zone, Pune chapter, and Institute of Indian Interior Designer who are attending this webinar session. When severe financial challenges due to the corona pandemic, the realty sector is not spared. Post-COVID, there are expectations that there would be a significant drop in people's affordability. The architectural design is also expected to change in sync with prevailing demand. Today's session is going to be a big opportunity for everyone who is associated sector as an investor, end user, or a developer to learn and stay ready for the new environment post-COVID. Delaying anymore, now I request Sumit ji to take the charge.
Thank you so much, Ravi ji. Now over to you, Ajay Bora ji, our Vice Chairman, JPF.
Thank you. Sumit ji has been a star of our fraternity. With Sumit ji's effort, we are Jito Professional Forum is launching the vertical for the architects and the interior designers. Well, architects and interior designers visualize, design, and then execute their vision to deliver wow moments in addition to delivering the utility value. For this process to be able to for this process to be successful, to be able to map the mega trends and the emerging behavioral paradigm shifts are very critical. Jito Professional Forum offers those opportunities to cross network horizontally with professionals from various sectors, unlearn, relearn, and explore next frontiers of growth together. Jito Professional Forum is a vertical of Jito consisting of the professionals and operated by the professionals. We appeal to all architectural and interior designer fraternities to connect with Jito Professional Forum, unlearn, relearn, and be inspired to create the next normal for all of us. Thank you. Sumit ji.
Thank you so much, Ajay ji. ID Chairperson, Architect Tarannum Kandri, to brief us about Nashik Regional Chapter. You need to unmute Tarannum. Akash, please unmute Tarannum.
Yes, sir. She is on mute.
Yeah, ma'am, please go ahead.
Thank you, Sumit. It's indeed a pleasure from me. I, Architect Taranum Kadri, Chairperson, IID Nasik Regional Chapter, welcome all the dignitaries of GITO on board and off the board, all the GITO members and all my IID chapter members and chairpersons whom I can see here online with me. It's indeed an honor for IID to co-host this event along with GITO Pune Forum. It's indeed a pleasure. I welcome our key speaker, Padma Bhushan awardee architect Hafiz Contractor Sir and Mr. Manish Ji Kumet, NEC Treasurer IID National, as our moderator for today's event. Manish Ji, welcome. Hafiz Sir, you're most welcome. We never wanted to miss a chance with you. To brief you all about Institute of Indian Interior Designers, IID with now almost 33 chapters all across the country and one in Dubai was founded in 1972 with a view of promoting good professional and trade practices among its members and enhance the image of interior designers and interior design as a profession. Today, it has been more than 10,000 members that we have in our IID, including leading architects, interior designers, and consultants all over India. IID Nasik chapter with over 225 members is one of the oldest chapter formed in August 1991 by our most senior members from Nasik. Since its inception, it has been an active and vibrant body led by leadership of stalwart architects like architect Praful Karkhanes, architect late Noor Rajiwala, architect Bakir Zafar, architect Sunil Chawda, Rakhi Takle, architect Akash Kadam, architect Supriya Nate, architect Hemant Dugad, one of our GITO members, IID Rakesh Loya, tilted. Nasik indeed has always been trying to give meaningful and value-added knowledgeable programs and had speakers from across the country and abroad too. And we had a privilege to host Hafiz sir a few years back in Nasik on one of the installation ceremonies. I am sure Hafiz sir, you remember that. I am also sure that today's session would be another feather in the cap of IID Nasik Regional Chapter as well as GITO. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to co-host with you. And we look forward for something very knowledgeable and definitely a beneficial event today. Thank you, Sumit. It's all to you now.
Thank you, Taranum. Now, finally, this webinar intends to address all the stakeholders in the construction landscape. Issues of around 5 crore construction workers, design fraternity, builders, and developers will be discussed, and this way entire pyramid of stakeholders will benefit from this session. We have architect Manish Kumat as a moderator for the event with us today. Manish sir did his post-graduation from SPA Delhi. His firm, Manish Kumat Design Cell, is one of the biggest design practices in Central India. He is a founder chairperson of IIID and currently he is the chairman of the National Convention Hyderabad, the biggest event for the design fraternity in the country. And now it's my absolute pleasure to introduce our chief guest, architect Hafiz Contractor, respected Padma Bhushan awardee, most notable figure in architecture community, my mentor and an industry stalwart, architect Hafiz Contractor. Not only he is the most renowned architect, but he also heads the largest architectural firm in the country. I have had the pleasure of working for them at one point of my career too, and taking inspiration from him, ventured into creating on one of my own. His firm has to its credit crores of square feet of ongoing and proposed projects in about 100 cities over 7 countries. Hafiz sir has received numerous national and international recognitions for excellence in design and contribution to architectural fraternity. Looking forward for a wonderful session. Over to you, Manish ji.
Sumit, I can start now?
Please, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. And good afternoon, Hafiz sir. We are looking for a wonderful session, very interactive session today. This session is going to address the whole real estate sector, the whole design fraternity. It is going to address the bottom of the pyramid, which consists of almost 5 crore construction laborers. It is going to address the vendors, the materials, the manufacturing companies, And this session, let's hope, is going to be very interesting. It is trying to get a version post-COVID from none other than one of the senior most architects in the country, Mr. Hafiz himself. And let us start going with this. And immediately, without wasting any time, I will like to put up the first thing which comes into my mind is, even before the COVID which started, there were talks about some kind of, slow down, the economy not picking up, demonetization, GST, and then all of a sudden COVID comes. So what is, sir, your view on the situation of real estate post-COVID under these circumstances?
See, since quite some time, in 1996 and all those kind of years, the real estate was going up. People were taking loans. Builders started getting loans, and money was available quite freely. And everybody, there was no end to it. Everyone, whoever had a job and could get a loan from his firm, started buying houses in like second homes and started buying houses for investment. And so was with the builders. The builders started taking bigger loans. In the olden days, if there was a job of about, say, 10,000 and 20,000 and 30,000 was supposed to be a very, very, very big job. Today, in the last about 10, 12 years, 10,000 and 20,000 square feet job, everybody feels, oh my God, such a small job. Everything has gone big. And now, since about, say, 1.5, 2 years or little more, we have been realizing that those all figures were all bubbles and they have just gone out. Nobody knows how to service those kind of figures. And finally, everybody thought that the real estate will keep on going up. There was a thing that what has appreciated in the last 30 years and 40 years, the maximum, and everybody will come up with, oh, the prices in this Cuff Parade was so much in 1960s. Today it is so much. So it has appreciated so 35,000 times and all those kind of figures. Now we are coming to some kind of a reality, and from several angles, I would say that this kind of a drop was envisaged, and we have been talking about smaller houses since last 2 to 3 years. We have been talking about not only smaller houses, but we have been also talking about that how not to waste in architecture. And we have coined the word zero waste architecture. I'm so glad to know that most of you are all Jains, and as per your religion also, you guys don't believe in so many things, which I really appreciate. Not to waste, not to have simple things, but that for some reason or the other, we have translated in our work, and we call it zero waste architecture. And you will be surprised that by following those zero waste architecture, we have come up with something completely new. And that is, the whole thing started with, I was doing work for a person called Mr. Jain. He's also, I'm not mentioning his first name because and we were doing a very large project for him, and we are still doing for him. And we did the plans. He liked the plans. And he said that, Hafiz bhai, let us submit the plans to the municipality. So I said, yes, let us submit it to the municipality. And then I told him, after about 4 or 5 days, I was looking at the plan, and I was not happy. And I said, there is something wrong. We are doing something wrong. And I told him that please allow me to change the plan. So he said, no. Arey, Hafiz bhai, you are wasting time. We are wasting time. હું તો બહુ happy છું. આપણે submit કરીએ. So I said, okay, you submit it, but I would like to do something. You will be surprised that within a matter of a month or so, I revised that plan. I made it tighter. When I say tighter, I did not reduce the square footage of the flat. Say 2-bedroom flat, whatever his area was, and whatever his sizes of his bedrooms, living rooms, and kitchen and everything was there, I gave him exactly the same. And I reduced the flat size. I reduced the building size. And I did that one. Like that, every time I did, and I revised it, improved it. Finally, I gave him in that building something like 66 flats more in the same built-up area, in the same FSI. Now, when I tell something like this to some of my builder friends and architectural friends, they say, "Arey, kya kuch magic karta hai kya? So I said, yes, if you say so, you can call it a magic. But then I started telling, a lot of builders that, see, there are somebody who is doing a pickpocketing of you. You don't even know that you are losing this area. Because see, what has happened, that there is something like a trend, and everything, when the trend is on, a flat of this size, and there is the way of doing a flat, it just goes on and on and on. Nobody has thought, can we not do it something better? So I am saying zero waste architecture. So that in that one building, if I am able to save 15% of my built-up area, and I am able to give 15% more flats, it's a great thing. Now you will think that, oh, it was your building and you did it for your own building. Then I adopted that theory to a builder friend of mine from Bangalore. He told me, can you help me? He had gone to some foreigner and got the plans done. And that foreigner had done lots and lots of floating columns for his basement. So he said, Hafiz bhai, can you just help me doing the basement plan? I did it. I took off all the floating columns. And then I told him, can I change your plan? He said, oh, my plan is very, very good. I said, no, your plan is not good. There, in that project, we gave him, again, 150 flats more. Now, just imagine, all this you are wasting. Now, that is one point that you can think about from the point of view of a builder and a prophet. But I'm not thinking only from that side. I'm thinking that there is a resource, there is a material, okay, which is going to waste. And that is taught by every Shastra, every religion. Do not waste. Okay? I don't know much about Jainism. I don't know much. But in every religion, everything, they say, don't waste anything. Water, don't waste. This, don't waste. So I am telling to all architects, please do not waste. Okay. So, and I, if I had the fortune of, knowing what I was going to talk on, I would have got you plans and shown you. And not only one, then I have followed it up for my other friend builders. I showed them that this tower that you are doing, if you allow me to just massage the plan, design the structure properly, design the shape properly, okay, I can get you, in some towers, I got 40 flats more. In some towers, I got 30 flats more. That itself is the saving. And in today's world, when we are talking about coronavirus, okay, to be very, very frank, I had never heard the word coronavirus and all that's just about 2 or 3 months back. That is the first time I heard it. But it is, I have been noticing that something is going to come, something is going to come, because we architects, I'm not blaming it on us and all that. I'm saying in the building industry, in this world, we have been doing things just unilaterally. You look at, forests are getting depleted. Uh, it, we just do anything and anything, and we just feel that, oh, it is okay, and the world is going to take care of it. There is something like, that there is a limit to it. And I feel that that limit has come. And this is a big awakening call for all of us, that please, enough is enough. Now just think of it and do things in the right manner. Now, this is what I would say is the way I think today. And mind you, we have been following this zero waste architecture. We have been mastering low cost housing. I'm not saying low amenity, low cost. And how do you do low cost? By not utilizing lesser and bad materials, but good materials. If you are utilizing, say, 100 square feet of something, utilize 90 square feet. And the 10 square feet, put it to a proper use where it can give a house or something to something. Now, mind you, now why am I saying this zero waste architecture is so important? Today, if you look at India, and I'm saying in all of this coronavirus and everything, India is the focus. India is the focus, and India is the focus because we are having 1.3 billion population, and that is fast increasing. Our population is less than the average, 60%, 50% of our population is less than 30. Now, all these boys and girls, they are going to get married, they are going to have kids, and our population is going to increase further and further. Mind you, the world's population is not increasing so much as ours, though the world's population in the last 70 to 70 years, it has virtually become double. And what is going to happen to this? Now, we have to house all of these people. Today, our beloved Prime Minister says there is 22 million house shortage. I beg to differ with our Prime Minister. But I'm sorry, I don't want to beg to differ. But I'm saying that, sir, there is still more need of more houses because these are people who are on the streets. These are people who are in the slums. But what about people who are in dilapidated construction? God forbid there is one earthquake or one tsunami and we are gone. Okay. So we have to house these people. Now looking at it from point of view of materials. Okay. Materials, wood is virtually gone. We have butchered all our forest and we keep on butchering more every day. You don't realize because of depletion of forests, global warming, okay, so many species are dying every year. So many species are dying. Okay, where are we going to? Where are we going to? If you look at materials, we think that concrete is an unsustained, resources are going to be unlimited. There's concrete in the next 30 years. India is not going to have any more limestone mines. Where is concrete going to be? Where is what? We have to think about not only how to use this material in the right manner, but we have to also think about new materials. And another thing, why am I saying that India is the focus. Today, the amount of built up area that we have and what is going to be there in the next 25, 30 years, most of that built up area, we don't have it right now because India is progressing. India has to build. India has to house this number of people. So we have to think, and we have to think that we have only resources of so much, okay? And we have to cater to a larger population. So would we not like to do that? Please, I think I said enough. Hello.
Hello. So, sir, you have pointed on two very important things. One is zero waste architecture, a very new kind of term, and smaller homes, and how we can try to, make out things from trying to minimize the things and do the things. You have also pointed that Jainism already believes in these things. I would very interestingly point out, because a lot of Jains are also over here in this audience. In Jainism, we have a very interesting concept which is called as aparigraha. Aparigraha means every individual tries to define the balance, the line between what is the need and what is the greed. Now, post-COVID, there is a thought process which is going when the help is not available, the workers are not available, ghar par kaam karne wale log available nahi hai, and people have to work themselves. And at that point of time, they are realizing that we have made something which is more than our needs. We have made something which is bigger than we can actually maintain ourselves, and people are trying to limit themselves. So in these times, what would you think happens to the luxury in real estate post-COVID, and what would be the outcome?
See, it is said now that a person who realizes his mistake and learns from it is a wise man. Okay, so I would say, I have been saying for a long, long time that, we should not have shower the way we are having, shower and while we are having a bath. It's a nice thing to have a bucket of water and have a bath, but every day I say that a few days I do it, but then something or the other, or I'm in a hurry, or I'm in this, and I run. Our faucets, different kind of faucets are there. There is a thing that, yes, with progress and all that, there is some way of life that which is very, very good. Like, today I'm talking to you with all of this computer and webinars and all that. But there is something of the past also. If we can make that modification and come together, have what is good about the past, try and adopt it. What is good about what we were doing, try and adopt it, and minimize wastage, minimize what is not needed for your use, minimize all that, and that will take us a long way. I can't hear you.
एक सर विचार दिमाग में आता है कि every city we are creating slum. We have tall buildings, we have luxury locality, and adjacently we have a slum in which there is a huge population density. For example, in Mumbai we have Dharavi, and almost I am being told more than 1.5 million live there. Then government is talking about social distancing. Government is talking that we have to maintain a distance, wherein in the same place, the toilets are being used by hundreds of people in one day. And then eventually Dharavi jaisi jagah, they will become epicenter. And then Dharavi also happens to be, somewhere connected with the lifeline of Mumbai. So what is the situation post-COVID? What should government think? What should real estate think? And how we can avoid this?
अच्छा, ठीक है साहब. I don't know whether you know of it, but the previous slum redevelopment scheme was started by me and one of my another Jain friend. Okay, I went to Suresh Dada Jain at that time and told Mr. Suresh Dada that I have an idea of how to eradicate slums of Mumbai. We studied all that, we made the scheme, and then we finally went to Balasaheb Thackeray at that time, and he, in spite of all his office bearers, Mr. Manohar Joshi, Mr. Pramod Mahajan, then some other guys, all of them said, Balasaheb Nako Kara. And he said, Nahi, Mala Karai Chai Jaye. And the slum redevelopment scheme started. Though there might be a lot of ifs and buts in that, but hundreds and hundreds of people or lakhs of people have been housed in those slums. Now, today, when you're talking about the COVID started, about say 3-4 months back, but we are on a plan by which we have done the plan, by which we can solve the whole problem of all the slums of Mumbai. We can eradicate each and every slum of Mumbai, house them in a proper house. Okay, not only that, by doing that, the government has to change certain laws. There are certain laws which, see, the laws are what? Laws are made for the good of the people. If the good of the people is in changing laws, then the government should think about changing laws. And if the government thinks about changing laws, all the slums can be eradicated. Not only that, we are working today on a scheme by which we can eradicate the housing problem of whole of this country. We are working on it. There is enough land. There is enough everything. The only thing, we don't have a mindset. We don't have a mindset, okay, that how to do things. If we just change the mindset, we can change it. And then after doing that, we can become a workforce for the whole world. We can have cheap labor. You call it, call centers, you call it small production, assembly centers. All of these people can be put to work in that. And we can be a next world power.
So a lot of builders and developers, they are attending this session, and they all are very eager to hear about what your views are post-COVID in terms of, the real estate in residential segment, maybe commercial segment, co-working spaces, then retail or hospitality. So what kind of things would emerge out post-COVID, and what segment would come out of post-COVID, and what is your advice to the builders, how things will emerge, what government policies can emerge out of this situation?
See, I'm not a soothsayer, but what I can see that yes, things are going to be very, very difficult. We have to think about what I said, zero waste architecture. We have to think that, where right now, I'll just give you a good example. Just about some 6-7 months back, one builder from Pune only had come to me, and he was doing some 2 basements, huge basements. Huge means, they were quite a big, about some 4-5 acres of basement, and he was doing 2 basements. And I showed him a plan, and I told him that, and I fitted the same amount of car park in 1 basement. And I just said that you tweak the plan a little bit here and there. But see, the thing is, oh, my plans are past. I will save, if I go again, I will save, there's so many months, this, that. So one is, one is to talk to the government. The government is taking, unduly long for passing of plans. And from other side, is the bank and the loan money, which keeps on mounting. So we have to go to government and say that, please, passing of plans. environmental approvals. When the environmental approvals are in a city where there is already a zoning plan for housing or something, and where the zoning plan is there, you should just have a fixed law that you do this, and you don't require an environment approval. So environment approvals, faster saving of materials, okay, and again, how to make things smaller and better is the mantra. How to make things smaller, better.
A lot of
And save cost. Cost is the most important thing. And time.
Lot of sir architects and designers and students from colleges, they are over here. Now everyone in our field is talking for work from home, a culture of work from home which has never happened on a scale the way it has happened now. Most of the design practices, small or big, trying to utilize this time in doing work from home. And what do you think after once this COVID is over, what would be the new norm? Is work from home going to affect the design scenario in the country, the way design is being done? Is it going to affect the way the establishments, the huge establishments in terms of designs have happened in the past? Will they reduce, or this would not have much impact on the existing scenario?
See, this COVID, pandemic, is not something which is just a common thing. It is in the last, 100 years, it's one of the worst thing that has happened. And we human beings have always surmounted everything. From one side, I hope there is a vaccine. I hope there is a cure for all this. So that's my prayer to God. And so that's one thing. But God forbid something happens and this is going to be the norm. Then the way we work, the way we live, all of that is going to get completely changed. Maybe God doesn't want us to concentrate in cities and wants everyone to be everywhere. Maybe villages will come up, and you might be in one village working somewhere else, and with IT and internet and everything that might be possible, or we will overcome this, and life will be just hunky-dory, in just another 8-9 months. So, and the way I think, most probably, we will find a way, we will find a cure. There will be a vaccine, there will be a drug, there will be this, that, and life is going to go on. But it's a wake-up call. I feel that how we design cities, and for India, it should be a bigger wake-up call, because India is the only country, or one of the few countries, who is building new cities. Today, when we get a call from certain government agencies and say, oh, it's so many square kilometers by so many square kilometers, we want to design a new city. Architects who have designed cities of this size should apply. Are they fools? There have been, barring, Chandigarh and just one or two, some cities. Where the hell in India we have designed new cities? So then who gets qualified? Only guys from Singapore and some another foreign country will get qualified. But they do not know what is hurting India. Today, when we design our cities, we should not be having so many square kilometers by so many square kilometers. We are buying the farmland. We are giving them compensation. The farmer, when he gets a compensation, he is very happy, because he, in his so many generations, would not have earned that much. It is like the same thing. In Bombay Fountain area, all the restaurants went off because they sold it to banks, and the banks gave them big compensation. Now think about if all of this land is going to go off and we are just going to have big cities, and having the old formula of designing a city. When your need is there, you have to design with a new formula. The new formula, the foreigners don't know it because they are not even aware of it. We are aware of it, but we are not qualified to design those cities. So what is going on? So the guy who is inviting you to design cities, he doesn't even know what is the problem. The problem is we have to take care of our land. The land is one place where you can grow your food, where there is water, water percolation. 75 to 85% of our Indian people rely on subsoil water. Where will water be there? Now, these are the things that has to be considered. We have to change the way we build our cities. We have to go vertical. Now, all over the world, vertical, is considered as something of glory. No, for India, it is not glory. It is necessity. It is necessity because more people have to be housed on a smaller area and leave the larger area for food. Otherwise, what about your food securities? Every day, everyone eats more. Every day, everyone uses more water. There is more food which is wasted. Olden days, your grandfather, my grandfather, how they used to eat? They used to eat at a thali. And if they did not want something, they will just put that thing away. Today, we have banquets, we have buffets. The guy doesn't even want that food. He just dumps it because it is all free of charge. I had gone to one dining hall in Pune and I read one thing which it appealed to me hell of a lot. It was a thali center and he said, oh, the thali is 120 rupees and if you finish everything in your thali, it is 100 rupees. If you are wasted, it is 120 rupees. So this is where we are. Okay, so it's a mixed concept that, high rise is bad, high rise is not bad. Look at the future, look at the future. Look at from 1.30 billion to 1.50. What will happen? And maybe we'll go more than 1.50. Unless and until we have to increase or we have to start different ways of farming. In 1 acre, how much rice grows? In 1 acre, 3 times of that rice grows. Yes, fine. In 1 acre, how many fruit-bearing trees can come? Fine. Instead of 2 harvests and 3 harvests, we start having harvest, 4 harvests and 5 harvests. I don't know. I'm not an expert to it, but we have to think about land. There's a very good saying. Land is one commodity which cannot be manufactured. Everything else you can manufacture. Electricity, oil, that everything else is manufactured. Land is not and cannot be manufactured.
Very, very rightly said, sir. Land in India, which is not that big a country in terms of population, if we compare it to other countries like Russia, maybe China, maybe USA, the kind of population we have, land is the most important resource. So the suggestion which you have given, the vertical cities, vertical well-planned cities, is the solution which can be taken by the government, which can be implemented by involving designers like you, and then it can be implemented across the country. We have already seen, other than India, we have not seen vertical cities happening in a right way as it should have happened in the country. Sir, now the next thing which I feel is a lot of students are over here. They are into education. A lot of academicians are also over here. They would be interested in knowing what kind of architectural education, what should be the role of the student, what should be student looking for in such kind of situation, and what should, what kind of architectural education India needs, and what should be the students they should be thinking about.
As I said it, that one has to study what is going on in the country, and looking at it, like what we have been doing, we are since last about say 6-7 years, we were trying to get into a different kind of a material by which we can build cheaper, faster. But every time we tried that material, and finally we were getting bogged down with fire. I would say that first of all, as a student, you should learn what has happened in the past. And unless and until you know the history and you study the history and you just don't mug the history, what is how the Romans built, how the in the medieval areas we built, so that you understand construction. Unless and until you understand the past, then the present you will be able to implement and get a solution for the present. So we have lots of problem about the present. For a student who has not studied the past, who doesn't know proper construction, who doesn't know proper design theories, I would not say that you go into and jump into that kind of a well. First learn the swimming and then you can jump into the ocean. So that is for the students. As far as educationists are concerned, I would first like to apologize and say I'm very, very sorry to say these things, but I would like to say it because my heart bleeds when I see a lot of students coming out and they are not worth coming out of the colleges. So I don't know what is happening in the college. That are we imparting the right knowledge, or are the students that dumb that they are not getting the right knowledge? But in our office, at any given time, we used to have 50 to 60 interns. And previously, I never used to take any interviews of any interns because I said, what is the sense of taking an interview of an intern? Just employ him, because, I know when I was an intern, how important it was for anybody to get a job. So I used to do that. But then all my architect group leaders used to say, sir, some of them are so useless. They don't even know a single thing, a simple thing. So I feel that our education, we do not have to convert each and every student in an architectural college into a designing architect. Architectural buildings have also become much, much, much more complex than what they were 40 years back. Buildings were smaller. Today, we have done one building. We have just completed one building of 11 crore square feet. One building of 11 crore square feet with 6,000 car parks, this, that. It's so complicated. And mind you, there, I just can't take the credit that I am the architect. We were several architects, several engineers, several, MEP consultants, building executionists. So, it's a very, very important thing. Material specialists, what materials to take, fire norms. So we must, like medicine, we have to categorize and separate them out. And mind you, in my office also, okay, I can't do everything. I only do design because I know that I'm good at it. But there are lots of boys and my colleagues who are much better than me. Some in writing letters, some in doing educational drawings. So everyone should have its own best capacity and they should be transferred. Like how in medicine, some is a surgeon, some is a surgeon of this, some is, pediatrician, some is this. So I feel that we have to segregate and put them in the right compartment so they excel in that. And another thing that I would really suggest that as soon as the guy gets, his degree, he should not be put in the profession that he can start practicing. A lot of kids, he has just got a degree and he gets a license to practice. That is not the right thing. In a way, you will say that, okay, you're giving a free hand to each and every one. But when he goes in the market and uses the word tag as an architect, a practicing architect, and he cannot deliver, the whole profession, her image goes down. So let him work somewhere for 4 or 5 years and take a professional practice exam. Not just ask professional questions, is this fees, is this much, that is this much, that is this much. How he is going to practice? Is he right for it? Because the image of your profession is very, very important. Today, in a meeting, when an architect gets in or he enters, he should be respected. He should be respected. When I was a small kid working in Kharegar's office, and I had just joined the office, and about 2-3 years had passed, and I used to go to a site, and mind you, the site contractor was Shapurji Palanji, and there he had an engineer whose name was Mr. Nahar, and he was something like 80 years old. A very, very good gentleman, always dressed in that cotton suit and all that. And as soon as I go to site, the old man will get up from his seat and he says, sir, come, sir. And then when we will walk in the site, I was 18 or 19 years old, and that fellow was 85 or 80, and he would get up. And when we'll walk in this on the site, he will carry the drawings, and I will say, Mr. Nahar, no, I'll carry it. I said, no, sir, it's my duty, sir. And he will carry the drawings. Then, whatever I would tell him, Mr. Nahar, this should be done, he will say, yes, sir. I was in second year or third year, okay? After everybody has gone, then he will tell me, son, come here. What you told me was wrong. You must do like this. And then he will give me a book to read. What I'm trying to say, the architect was that well respected. Today, you go on the site, that is not the case. And I'll ask you why. Can you answer that? That's one question for you, my dear.
Yeah. Can you also repeat it again? I just missed it.
The last one?
Yeah.
I said that, that was the case when I used to go on the site. And today, when we architects go on the site, that is not the case.
I heard that.
So I'm saying that is one question, and I'm saying, why is that? And that is one question for you to answer for me.
Okay. The thing is that over a period of time, since it started with the students and the interns, the kind of interns, the kind of education, the kind of culture, the kind of ethics, that kind of sanskars which are coming in the interns and in the students and with the education, that seriousness in terms of guru shishya is lost. Students, when they come, the interns, when they come with a goal of a very limited time. We have to do internship for this much and then we should get the salary. The goal is not learning. I personally feel when we take interns, it should be at least they should work seriously for 2 years. At least 2 साल वो काम करें, समझें, respect करें, एक culture build up करें अपने seniors के लिए. That whole process is missing, and unfortunately the education is not addressing it. So and maybe this is possible because the number of architectural schools, they have mushroomed to such a big extent that the kind of faculty we have in the colleges, and then it goes deep rooted till the last time, and it is not being addressed. So maybe that kind of culture which was there earlier, maybe at your times, maybe at my times, it is missing. वो culture खत्म हो गया जहाँ teachers, guru और शिष्य आपस में एक दूसरे का respect करते थे. बच्चे जब आते थे तो they had some kind of regards. I don't know. Unfortunately, that is missing.
What you're saying in a way is right, but whatever is the case, we have to do something for our education, because otherwise what will happen that architects, or the word architecture and architects will be uh, uh, our grandkids will not be proud of us that, oh, mera dada architect tha, or somebody will say, oh, mera dada ye tha. I think, it is left to each and every one of us that we have to see that all the colleges have proper faculty, all the colleges conduct proper exams, and only the best of the best are led to come out in the profession, because then and then only that the quality and the respect for the profession will be maintained. And I'm not saying that we be harsh to any student, fail him for the sake of failing. No, I'm saying if he's fit, garland him and give him a degree. But if he's not fit, you should tell him, my dear son, please, you repeat yourself. You don't know this, you don't know this. Unless and until you know, you cannot be passed. That is my request. And that's about all. I can just make a humble request. I'm not a good teacher, but to get a good teacher is very, very difficult. And the unfortunate thing is that we don't pay our teachers so well. So we don't get good teachers. But when we were studying, there was a very good thing that we had a morning college, and we used to have all teachers who were practicing. So each and every teacher would be teaching in the morning from 7 to about 9:30, 9:45. He will be going to his office. And we would be doing we were working, all of us were working in some offices or the other. And it was a very nice thing. We used to get theory knowledge in college and practical knowledge in the offices. And that was a superb way of teaching. But I don't know why today they have made it into 5 years and 4 years. And what do? They go to college at about 10 or God knows what. By 2:33 they are over. Then they keep on wasting their time. I don't want to get into that. But I would say that our system, the way it was, we used to get very good teachers. And that's the best way of teaching, because the guy who is practicing, he knows the practicality. So he teaches you the best. And when I went to Columbia also, it was the same thing. All our teachers were practicing what they were teaching. So that's the way I look at it. To get good teachers, you should have morning colleges. That would be the best thing.
Sir, I have this one observation into this point. I always feel, we can also not blame students, the young students who come. Teacher, the main purpose of the teacher is motivation. In case if a teacher can motivate this spark in a student, in a child who comes, because these child, when they join, that spark has to be initiated. The whole purpose of education should be in igniting that spark, so that the child gets motivated, and then then the whole education process becomes very interesting for him.
I really don't know whether the motivation part comes out of a teacher only. Yes, to some extent it comes out of a teacher, but to a lot of extent, it is the individual student. He has to be motivated. As I always say, that his ass has to be on fire. He should have the desire to do something. But if he doesn't have the desire, then any amount that the teacher is going to motivate is not going to be there. But the initial, yes, for the student, it has to be there that he wants to go somewhere, he wants to learn. And then he will find an individual teacher who, 1 out of 10 teachers, one teacher, if he gets good, and who will motivate and who will tell him some 2 or 3 good words. And that's the ticket to heaven. That's just 1 or 2 words. You don't need anything more. Like I'll tell you, when I was a student, I studied in Nasik. I was in Boys Town, Nasik. And I was a very, very naughty student, never studied, never did this, copied and passed in the morning, all kind of things, what I haven't done, you can't even think of, okay? And one day, my principal called me when I came back from vacation and I was going to join the SSC. At that time, it was SSC. And he gave me a 10 minutes lecture. And he said that, son, now the future or your future is in your hand. All these years, I have taken care of you. If you don't study, what will you be? And I remember he said, bus conductor thase, su thase. You understand Gujarati, na? Okay. He said, bus conductor banega, ke kya banega if you are not going to study? And mind you, that 5 or 10 minutes of talk, I started taking books right from 5th standard. Science, this, that, studied. I was a junior championship, holder, in sports. I never went to any games field or any sports field. Studied everything. And finally, when I got a second class in SSC, my principal told me, go to the fire temple and thank God. You have not got second class, you have got distinction. From where to where? So it is one, but finally it was me. It was not that nobody had told me before also. My auntie, my fui used to tell me every semester, you're not studying, study. It never got into my head. When it went into my head, then khatak, it started.
Very right. Sir, now what we will do is, we will take just 3 questions from the audience. And I have one of the, Taranum Kadri, who is already there with us. She represents IID Nasik, and she's an architect from Nasik. And she has this question. When we talk about luxury spaces, how do you see amenity spaces as social distancing is going to be thoughtful criteria henceforth? Will the spaces restructured as architecture is concerned, or there would be a different scene?
First of all, luxury, if you were to define the word luxury, is such a big thing that it's an ocean. What is luxury for a man on the street who is sleeping on the street and he gets a nice bench to sleep in the night? It's a great luxury. From where to where, luxury has got no bounds. And I would say that it is, for all of us. Like today, before COVID, I would say, pre-COVID, every magazine you see, how many luxury products you are just having, how many luxury furnitures you are just having. A table which can cost, or a chair which can cost 10,000 and 15,000 will cost couple of lakhs. A bed which can cost, it's just, and a tag of name, this or that or that. We are just getting into everything is, luxury. A person who comes to get his flat done also, he says, oh, I want all names. I want all sofa, this, that, all with names, that he has used this name, that name. I see a lot of people, oh, she or he is wearing this shoes or that, bag. What is the matter? Why are we getting into this? And we are really spoiling it. I think this luxury, there should be a limit to luxury. And I would say that I wish there is some kind of a leader who starts advertising and saying that, oh, this kind of a product and it's wasting so much of money on a pair of shoes, which will cost, say a few thousand, and to go into a couple of lakhs is a waste. And I would say, stop wasting. Stop wasting. And all these spaces and all that, you're still thinking how to waste. Stop wasting and be little bit to yourself and don't show off. There is nothing in show off. Less of show off and simple life will be much, much better. Simple life, simple things. And that is the ultimate. You don't need any more space than that.
Next question comes from a builder, from a real estate person. And he asks, what would be the state of real estate post COVID-19, and what would be the areas where the investment would happen?
See, I already said it, that we are a population of 1.3. We are increasing. We have the need of so many million houses. We have the need of so many hospitals, so many hotels, so many, everything, okay? So as far as if you are in the real estate segment, you have a great future. But the future is, there is another caveat to that 1.3 billion people. The caveat is the buying power. The buying power is very, very less. Today, each and every builder is looking at it, oh, I buy in this area, I buy a plot here, I'll pay so much. And इधर तो ये रेट है, मैं तो ऐसा करूंगा, अच्छा आर्किटेक्ट को लाऊंगा, ये करूंगा, वो करूंगा, और मेरे को रेट इतना मिलेगा. That is how every builder thinks. I would say that, think about it. There is a market for that. Mind you, there is a market for that. But think of it that there is a place where I can make a flat of so many rupees, where I'm not making much of profit, but I design it well. I make proper use of it, make 20% more flats, and that 20% more flats, I sell it at the same lesser price, but I will get more profit. So think about it in the right manner. Here kya hai, right now, what was happening? I'll tell you an incident. Previously, some few years back, a builder used to buy a plot, used to buy it in morning. And by evening, sometimes somebody used to come and say, oh, he bought this plot. And by evening, this fellow gave an offer of so many crores more. So, the builder used to get it from right side, he would increase his prices by 100 rupees. If he gets it from left side, he will increase his prices by 50 rupees. Those days are gone. You have to think in the right manner, make the proper use. Building is becoming an industry. And that is where the scope is there. The scope is tremendous, but for the right product and for the right price.
Again, sir, one more question from a builder. What happens is when the project comes for designing, he discusses the demand and supply. Unke paas mein feedbacks hote hain ki the demand and supply is like this. We have to design flats of this size, that size. And then the point of time in terms of government approval and then the execution of the project, 1-1.5 साल के अंदर वो डिमांड सप्लाई का गैप या जो assessments थे वो break हो जाते हैं and the whole process, whole design of the project becomes irrelevant. Can we use technology and then it is not about Mumbai, Hyderabad or Bangalore. How can smaller cities, how can the whole country use technology so that this project execution can become fast and then it is helpful for the real estate?
First of all, from design to approval and needs are changing, that one has to think of it and plan for it. So that if you are just designing and making things which are going to be that, you know, this is valid today, one has to think always what is going to be valid after a year, year and a half. So that's my first answer. The second answer is, when I was talking about zero waste architecture, when we talk about zero waste, there is also appropriate time. And there are lots and lots of technologies available by which you can make the time into half. We are, what I told you about the slum housing, what I told you about that, you know, I can solve the problem of all the slums, and we have already done the plans. It's not that I'm talking and I'm just claiming. There we have adopted tunnel forming, so that in just 1.5 years, you can build the whole slum and give it back. We have done plans for Dharavi, how Dharavi can be wiped off in just 1.5 years. I was the person who went to the railways and got Dharavi, those 90 acres of plot extra, because I knew that, you know, unless and until we have a place where we can do direct housing and not do transit and waste about 1,800 rupees, that 1,800 rupees into something like 1 lakh of units would be a colossal figure, and the whole scheme would not be working. So it is all of this. Time, money is the essence.
Very rightly said, sir. Time and money, they are very important, and the whole model has to be very dynamic, very flexible, so that it adopts, the whole design can adopt to the newer situations. WHO chief says post-COVID, a new normal situation would emerge out of the world. New normal. Now, what is this new normal with respect to the real estate?
I had told you that maybe the new normal will be that what people, most of the people, you know, in India are supposed to migrate 70% to the cities. That may not happen. It might be 50-50. A lot of people may stay in villages and work with IT. Or maybe that is not the case. The new normal situation would be that we have the drugs and we have the vaccines, and we start taking care of look at the whole world as one village, because what is happening in China has affected the whole world. Now, what will happen in places like India, Brazil, Africa, is going to be the new norm. So you have to think about places like that also. Rich countries will have to think about what is happening in the rest of the world, and they will have to contribute to that, because it has been enough that they have made so much of money, the rich countries. Now they have to take care of the poorer countries. Just imagine, God forbid, in a slum, maybe in Malaysia or Taiwan or somewhere, or in Brazil or in India, in some slum, some kind of another virus got out. What will happen? The world has to think about the whole, every country and its one village. So what happens in a village affects everyone. And that is the post-COVID normal situation. That what is happening in the whole world will concern everyone. And if it doesn't concern everyone, then we have not learned from COVID. God wants us to learn from COVID. Take care of your nature. Before cutting a tree, think of it. Before stopping something and excavating, think of it. Think when you are doing something for nature and destroying nature, think of it.
This question comes from one of the audience who is into IT, and he feels that IT spaces at times they are designed with per square feet so many people should sit in the office. With a city like Bombay, maybe Hyderabad, Bangalore, where the price is very high, at times this density of people sitting in the office in this microclimate of interior spaces is too much, where people sit very close to each other. Do you think post COVID-19 a different scenario would emerge for designing of office spaces, for designing of IT structures, for designing of commercial buildings, malls, which would be taken by the designers?
Definitely post-COVID, the IT spaces right now is like 60 square feet per person, and a little bit lavish is 65, 70. Those criterias will definitely change. And why are those criterias? Those criterias are there because it's finally boils down to money. If we find out a better way of construction, if the government makes norms much more simpler, or how much of money in every square foot the government gets, if government starts thinking that the building industry is not like the gutka industry or the tobacco industry, that it has to be flogged, and taxed. Because they have been taxing, the building industry unilaterally. Everything of building industry, tax them. Now, all this reflects finally into a business. See, the worst thing for a building industry is you do anything in any other industry, say Bersian gas, you increase the prices, there will be uproar, and people will start commenting on it in 1 week or 10 days. You take decision in any other field, take it law, take it water, take it electricity, increase the prices of electricity, anything. Building industry is one thing where for anybody to realize it and what are the effects, the earliest it takes is about 8 to 10 years. And that is what is, because you increase the taxes of this, by the time the building gets done, by the time it gets reflected in your user, why it has come to 60 square feet? Never, previously it was 100 and 110 when we first started doing the IT buildings. Then it started coming down because they were not able to compete in the international market. The rent of the IT, call centers. So it is all because of, I would say, the government policies.
Sir, one question on sustainability. We are used to design only and only, air-conditioned buildings most of the times. There are cities where air conditioning is not required throughout the year. There are cities when you can do away with air conditionings for maybe 4 months to 6 months. Can we think, this is a very intelligent question which addresses sustainability, because most of the buildings, they are energy guzzlers. The kind of electricity which they consume is enormous. Now it is very high time for real estate to design buildings which are, look into the aspect of sustainability also. So would India think about designing buildings which are sustainable, which are based on the needs that they can be air conditioned when the thermal comfort levels are not there? Otherwise they can be on a cross ventilation mode. They can use a lot of natural light and those things. So would India post-COVID think, because now the situations would become more and more challenging, so would real estate and the designers together would think of designing sustainable buildings?
Okay, now your question of sustainability is from an angle of 20 years back. And you said that our buildings are energy guzzlers. Okay. At that time, there was a problem of energy, oil, electricity. Yes, I will like to first answer that question. That yes, we can design buildings which are not energy guzzlers. like in the olden days, like say the office where I used to work. What was there in the office? There was a nice large veranda. People used to walk on the veranda and enter the office. Office had big doors. We never used to have any curtains or anything. The veranda was about 5-6 feet deep. It had a nice 14 to 18 feet height. There were some small fans, which were just floating around. And there was beautiful cross ventilation, and nobody needed air conditioning. What started with that, more and more spaces were needed. The veranda got enclosed. They put sliding windows. The sliding windows started getting heated up. And then it started radiating heat inside. And then we started needing air conditioning. So it's first of all that we don't need her to design buildings where it has to be air conditioned. Okay, so that's first thing. But as far as sustainability is concerned, today, to me, sustainability is in a different way. Gone are those days when energy and oil is the only thing which I'm comparing sustainability with. Today, I look at it that if I have a plot of land which is 1 acre, and how am I designing a building? And in a country like India, where I have to house so many people, if I were to make an office building which is ground and 1 upper or ground and 2 upper, is it sustainable? I would say no. Achha, where on that same plot, if I were to make a building which is ground and 20, or consume 20 times the area, okay, is it sustainable? I would say that is much better, because I am not only housing more amount of people, but I will free up some other area which I can leave it, where I can just grow trees, where I'm not going to encroach upon a wet body pond or something like that. To me, that is more sustainable, because how to use the land? Land is a precious commodity which cannot be manufactured, so you use it more effectively. Where cities are there, use it more effectively. Again, I have been muted. You are muted. Okay. Make denser cities, vertical dense cities, so that you have lot of place for forest and farm land. That is more sustainable. So I am looking at sustainability in that manner. I am looking at sustainability not with power and not with only glass facade and all that. I am looking at it, how you use your concrete, how you use, how much of surface area you have covered it. What is your FSI? Sustainability has gone much ahead. A lot of times, a lot of people come up and say, "Oh, we have this plot. There are 100 trees on the plot, and I want a green building, but cut all the trees," because nobody was bothering at that time. No, how to retain those trees and do it? Then it is. We are doing one project in somewhere in Gujarat, where there was something like so many thousands of trees. We designed the whole campus by just cutting 4 trees. Four trees. Okay. And we designed the whole campus. It's not that it cannot be done. Yes, it will be more expensive. But what is expense? When you are talking about environment, and when we are talking about environment, think about one more. It's a very old saying, an African saying, that you have inherited this world not from your forefathers, you have borrowed it from your grandkids. So when you leave this earth, just think about, leave it thinking about your grandkids. ये बाप का जमीन नहीं है कि तुम कुछ भी करो. समझा? ये आपके बेटे लोग और बेटे लोग का जमीन है, तो उसको बराबर से केयर से करो। ठीक है साहब?
Very, very rightly said. I think, Sumit, we should ask some of our members over here. They can have some questions in their mind. So maybe Tarannum, you would like to ask something?
I think I audible. Yeah. So when we talk about social distancing, so after this COVID, how do you think? What is your say about the public spaces? Are they going to be designed the same way, or the norms would change? What is your comment onto that, sir? I'm looking forward for that answer.
I'm looking for, if you are going to have social distancing, I think it will be not a happy world to live in. If I meet somebody and I can't hug that person, I can't shake hand with him, and I can't say hi boss, and hug him. What the hell, is good for living. Uh, uh, we will find a way. We must have solution. There will be vaccines, and I want to live in a world which is a happy world, where I meet people, talk to them, uh, smile, hug them, cajole them, and that is the way I would like to live. Not like, with social distancing and all that. This is a very, very, it's like, God has punished us for so many months. I am sure God will pardon us and won't punish us further. I hope so. So I am not at all thinking about the social distancing at all. Not at all. Not at all. And that won't be the way world will live. Maybe, everybody, like how what they say abroad, that, they are not bothered. They have opened up the cities. Okay, they say that, oh, so many people will die. Afterwards, everybody will be immune to it, and everything will be okay. So maybe that might be the stand. So I don't know, but the social distancing, no way.
Thank you, sir.
Sumit, is there somebody from Jito who wants to ask any question?
I think we had a wonderful session. Sir, can you just ask general public who have joined us to raise their hand and ask a couple of questions, just max 2 or 3 questions?
Somehow
if anyone from the audience wants to ask.
I'm not able to see the hands on my PC. I don't know why. So
we have some people. I am adding Miss Swati Chiplunkar. She has raised hand.
No, it's not visible on my PC.
Swati, Shrikant, and Smriti. Any one of you can ask the questions. We have unmuted all three of you.
Hi, Mr. Hafiz. I'm
Yes,
Shrikant here.
Haji.
You had said that don't use wood.
I didn't get your question, sir.
Yeah, in your speech you said we should use less of wood and more of new products. So I think there are a lot of FS certified forest where their wood won't be depleted, and it's more 100% biodegradable, more closer to human being. So what's the other option you're talking about?
See, there was a time when all wooden door frames and window frames were always wood. Now we are doing, we hardly use wood. We just use some little bit of an architrave, and that's also, yeah. So I'm not having, absolute right solutions, but there are many more materials which can be used instead of wood in the normal circumstances. Yes, for decorative purposes, where we are having veneers, but now with color, we get the same kind of a quality unless and until one is told that, oh, this is a veneer and this is a laminate. You don't understand, but you don't even realize it. The same thing goes with marble. So I'm saying that we should use certain things which are not going to really hamper the nature. Once reach to a level that the earth has so much of square kilometers of forest land, and once that is there, then yes, we can start using more wood. Now, this is my way of looking at it. A lot of people who do a lot of interiors would say that, oh, this is a crazy idea. Without using wood, how can we do any interiors? But we have been doing not without using absolute wood, but we do use particle boards and things like that, and we carry on.
Okay, Sumit, I think we will take last two questions. One is from Smriti Malhotra. I can see Smriti, her hand is raised. And then final question maybe from Rakhi Takle. I can also see her online. And Smriti, you can address your question now.
Yeah, hi sir. This is Smriti. I run a metal design house in the capital. And so we do a conglomeration of art with functional design. We use a lot of metal like brass, copper, and I'm sure a lot of designers are using that by casting, etc. Now, my question is, do you think post-COVID, we should alter our offerings as more affordable offering, or it shall, you think, remain unaffected, though we all know that we are coming back to the basics?
See, certain segment of people, what you're talking about, that you do art pieces and other things, with metal and stuff like that. Now, that kind of a thing is not for a very, very common person. That's for some of the upper class. So that I don't see anything getting affected over there. But if you are making your products which are for the mass consumption, then you definitely have to think about materials you are using. Instead of brass and copper, I would say that, oh, you use some simpler materials which look like brass and copper, make it cheaper, make it better, and which is accepted.
So, Sumit, we can take this last question from Rakhi Takle. She is from Nasik, and she is a senior architect in Nasik. Rakhi, can you put your question now?
Yes. Good evening, Architect Hafiz. It's a pleasure to hear you. And you have already, I had put this question quite at the beginning, and you have already answered most of it about what would your opinion be about the development priority that should be encouraged in the post-COVID times. You have answered that. However, I would like to listen from you that how can we contribute to making the right priorities being addressed, and is this the right time for projects like the Central Vista to be encouraged? I'd appreciate your opinion on this, sir. Thank you.
Madam, there is something like that, if the case is in court or something like that, or if you are a part of it, you don't comment on it. I don't know the exact term. So I would say that you want to spoil my evening.
Sir, I am sure after listening to your genuine view, architects, our fraternity would gather some courage to voice our concerns.
Okay, now you're instigating me too much, so I'll answer it. See, I don't know whether you've seen my presentation, what I have presented. Okay. Now, first of all, we were shortlisted just 1 week before. Previously, we were said we are not getting shortlisted because of this and that and that and that. So we were shortlisted 1 week before. We took each and every care of it. I did not want a single tree to be uprooted. I did not want a single, the vista to be destroyed. And when we are talking about some building, and we are not talking about an ordinary building, when we are talking about anything which is done in a history, that building should talk and take the history further. That is, this was built in this time, and this was built in this time. And that's how the future generation will talk about the history of a city. And that's how the buildings represent and dictates the history. So if you look at our design, what we thought of and what we had, we took the clue from our Prime Minister. I don't know whether you've seen my presentation.
I have.
So what I started with, that I don't remember the words of our Prime Minister. I took one of his lecture, and he says that, the world has to see what India is coming to. We have to build a new India. And to me also, I am an absolute believer in India. I'll tell you a story about when I was going abroad to study. And when I went for my visa, the American consulate guy saw me and he's looking at me in my eyes and saying, you will never come back. So I said, sir, I know your country is a great country, a beautiful country, but I love my country and I'll come back. And do you know, after graduation, when did I come back? I graduated in the afternoon and I caught a plane in the night, that same night, because I knew that if I stay in America for one more day, it's such a beautiful country, it's such a great country, I will never come back. So, but I came back. So what I did, I wanted to create India, the biggest democracy. It's the biggest, it's what more than the biggest democracy. So we had designed like a star, which everyone and everyone in the world will talk about it and say, oh my God, what a building. They wanted all the buildings to be in sandstone and all that it should merge with the old buildings. That's not correct. See, that's not how you respect your heritage. Okay. Now, today in your family, there might be grandfathers, grandmothers. Okay. The way I'm getting to your hairstyle, your grandmother must not be having the same hairstyle. She must be having a what is it called? That
bun, chuda
at the back.
Yeah.
To respect your grandmother, you don't have to do that. You have to have your own identity. You have to look more beautiful. You have to have, and the same thing goes with the city. You are wearing, I don't know what kind of cloth you're wearing, but your grandmother must be wearing a simple cotton cloth with some small prints or something like that. That's what, all the old people were wearing. She must be wearing a sari. You're wearing a t-shirt or something like that. So but you respect your grandmother. And the whole thing, and that forms a great family. Okay, but if you were to also be like that chudi and all that, and everybody will say, okay, bekar family hai, kuch malum nahi hai, kya hota hai. Do you want your city to be like that? You have to respect heritage, but at the same time, you have to go forward and design new things, design things which are going to be known and talked about for another 100 years. But you don't have to repeat that. That's why we designed what we designed. But we never got the job. So, okay, fine. There are millions of other things, I've forgotten. You're making me remember it.
I'm sorry. But good. We got to hear from you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So, one last question. We are continuously getting a pop-up from our JPF Director in Charge, Ravi Jainji. He wants your opinion. on how do you look at real estate as an investment at this point of time.
I think it's a see. I would say that there are many better things to invest in right now. See, what is an investment? I invest somewhere where when I want money, I get it immediately. Since the last 4 or 5 years, I've been seeing that if you have invested in real estate to sell, you'll never get that money immediately. And if I can't get that money immediately, then I don't think that's a good investment. So, and since last 4 or 5 years, I don't see that much of appreciation happening. So it's somebody will say that it's wrong of me to say that real estate is not the right place to invest for investment, but I can't be dishonest. I don't want to advise anybody, but I will not invest right now in real estate as an investment. If I have a need for a flat, yes, you have to buy it. So it's a necessity. Yes, you have to buy it. But investment, I don't know. I am not a financial expert. So I would not like to answer that. Okay, I already answered it.
Thank you so much, sir. But
Thank you, sir.
Address the question, sir. Thank you so much. If it is needed, then definitely it's the right time to buy. But if it is not needed, you don't take it as a right time for the investment because you may not be able to encash it in nearest future.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you,
Sonia.
Sir, I am sure, like me, all our participants have immensely benefited from these multifaceted views and crystal ball gazing of our speakers. Not only this has helped us to understand overall scenario, but also give us some ideas for our preparedness and how this market will unfold for us post-COVID-19. Now, I would like to invite Ajay Mehta ji, our Pune chapter secretary from JITO, to give us a vote of thanks. Ajay Mehta ji.
Thank you, Sumit. It was a wonderful session, and we've got many participants who couldn't attend or join the room, and we got many messages on personal chats as well. But fortunately, we were able to make it live on Facebook, so they could hear you, sir. So first of all, thank you for your time you invested with the JITO fraternity, IID, and through JPF, all the professionals. Yeah, and what the thoughts you have shared, sir. Sometimes you have been very from hard you spoke, and some questions you have to deal like a diplomat, and we completely understand your position being into that profession, and it's very dynamic situation right now. But of your will help fraternity as well as the other people from the JITO members. I would also like to thank Manish ji to moderate this session, Sumit ji for coordination and making this webinar happen. Our JPF team, Director in charge, Ajay ji Bora, Vice Chairman, our Zone Chairman, Ajay ji Sankla, our Vice President, Apex, Vijay ji Bandari, to get this on roll. Our Chapter Chairman, Kantilal ji Oswal, complete JITO Secretariat, who even in this COVID time are on the toes and trying to help us to do this webinar. Thank you to them as well. And thank you to all the participants who were able to make this live in the room and others who were able to hear us online. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Over to you,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Akash ji. Sumit, Akash
Sir, it was a fantastic session. Thanks all for joining. With this, we conclude the meeting and we'll be ending the meeting now. Thank you everyone for joining. Have a good day. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.